Please welcome Troy Deeney.
We used to have 2 pairs of shoes a year, a pair of school shoes and a pair of fast shoes, we used to call them. You know, they were your football, running, party shoes. Do you know what I mean? I was 9 and he was beating my mum and trying to make her come back, and I just kept getting in the way, jumping up, taking beats and getting back up and doing it again. My dad was my hero and still is my hero, but it was just one of those things, like, how could you do that to me kind of vibe. So I buried my dad on the Friday, I went to jail on the Monday. I never had any time to grieve or any time to understand what was really going on with me. In our community, a lot of people will need to see what I would class as a trauma therapist to be able to break down the layers. And when you do that, that shows you and makes you a better parent, in my opinion. Let's live every moment for our children, because you don't know how long they've got, you don't know how long you've got.
Hello and welcome to the Dadvengers podcast, sponsored by Tonka, because being tough is all about getting out and playing. My name's Nigel Clark and I'm founder of Dadvengers and host of this wonderful parenting podcast where we explore different aspects of parenting and hone in on the dad point of view. But it's not just about the dads. Mums, grandparents, carers, soon-to-be parents, we want you involved in the conversation too. So wherever you're listening to this podcast, please subscribe. It's so important because we can only continue to have important conversations like this if we can prove you're out there listening, and subscribing is the best way to let us know. So let's talk, let's laugh, let's share the things we find difficult and become the type of dads we really want to be. What's up, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Dadvengers podcast. I'm really excited about today's guest and have been ever since I met him about 6 months ago, because he's a straight talker who speaks his mind, and that's going to make for a great chat. He's best known as a professional footballer. He's also a father of 4, and more recently, he's also become an activist as well. Please welcome Troy Deeney.
I will have to say the activist part is a bit weird to add to my name, but thank you very much for that intro.
Yeah, dude, and it's more recent, and we will get into it later in this conversation. And even if you don't think you are now, and because you're so new to it, I think in the coming months, years, activist will become a title that you're happy to. I'm hoping you're going to be happy to accept as well, because you're doing some absolutely amazing stuff, and we're going to get into that. But to put it all into context, let's first talk a little bit about your childhood and your experience growing up. I mean, where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up in a place called Chelmsley Wood, which is in Birmingham. It was the largest estate in Europe until early 1990s, I believe. Normal low-income housing, same gigs as everything, you know. A lot of trouble around, a lot of distractions. But I generally had a nice childhood in the aspect of, I had a few instances which we'll get into, but I had a few instances throughout my lifetime. But all in all, I was generally quite happy. Loved playing football. I've got brothers and sisters, and I'm the oldest. So my youngest brother, my eldest of my youngest brothers is 3 years younger than me. So me and him was just like peas in a pod for a long time. Play football together, fighting. Everything you wanted to do as kids, we did, and we lived in a 1-bed flat to start with. Then we moved to a 2-bed flat with 4 of us, and then we moved into a maisonette which had 3 bedrooms. And then we eventually, by the time I was a teenager, we got a house because it was all council. Do you know what I mean? Just keep moving. So it was things were tough, but I enjoyed my early years as being a kid, yeah.
Do you think living in such a way brought you closer to your family? Because you talked there about 4 of you living in a 2-bedroom flat. Now that's close proximity, and there's many people all over the country that live like that. Did it develop a sense of togetherness, pride in your family? What was that like?
There's always been pride. So my dad is Jamaican, or was Jamaican, should I say? And it's one of those ones where we're always taught, like, your last name's your first name. So whoever hears your last name, you're representing the whole family. So don't let anyone down. Be respectful. Anything you can do for free, i.e. manners, you make sure you do that. And that's what we stood on from then, and even now we still do that. And when we first met, I think I'd like to say that I'm respectful and use my manners. So that's just something that's ingrained in me. But what it did for us as kids was we just knew we had to work hard. We had to work harder and it felt like we had to work harder than everybody else just to get something. Mum was working 2-3 jobs and we always just seemed to have nothing at the end of it. Do you know what I mean? We always just, no matter which way it worked out, we never had anything. But we was able to, I speak to my kids about it now because they're in the complete polar opposites of that. But we used to have 2 pairs of shoes a year, like a pair of school shoes and a pair of fast shoes, we used to call them. You know, they were your football, running, party shoes. Do you know what I mean? No matter which shoes. Way, your fast shoes, yeah. So that was it. And if you happen to grow quickly or put a hole in them or whatever, it was a struggle to get the next pair.
Yeah, you speak of it fondly, and you speak of it. It sounds like you remember lots because you remember all the different houses. And that speaks of a love, but it wasn't all easy going, was it?
No, it definitely wasn't. But I say that I speak about it fondly because although I don't live in the same house, I still live close enough. I still go back. I've just done the book as well. I've just written the book, and that's actually, funny enough, that's up for Book of the Year, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
So, so that's done really well. But because I've just relived all of that, it's still fresh. Like, I do have a real good memory because what I'm about to say now happened to me when I was 9 years old. So my dad was, a bit of a somebody, should we say. He was in and out of jail and doing what he was doing. And my mum left him because it was just too wild, like police breaking in, and she didn't want us to see all of that. And also she couldn't trust him in the regards of, like, he wasn't stable enough to be around and help raise a family. So she left, but as I say, my dad was a somebody, he didn't do that to my dad. So he had an episode basically where he forgot that we was his family and his kids, and he had an angry episode. And like I say, I was 9, and he was beating my mum and trying to make her come back. And I would say, like any 9-year-old would, but having learnt about this in therapy, I don't think everyone does. I just kept getting in the way, jumping up, taking beats and getting back up and doing it again. And yeah, I took a bit of a beating that day, and thankfully a young friend of mine at the time knocked the door because he wanted to see if I was going to play out. And my dad answered the door angrily and scared the young kid. He ran to his house 2 doors down, told his mum there was a big man shouted at him at Troy's house. She come and heard the commotion, phoned the police, and we like to think that's how we got saved, because there was no sign of it letting up, let's put it that way. And that was quite hard, because my dad was my hero and still is my hero. But it was just one of those things, like, how could you do that to me kind of vibe. It was just one of those things. And I talk about it quite blasely, because in the environment I was from, everyone had something going on. So my friend across the road, his mum was an alcoholic. My friend across the road there, his dad was a drug abuser. Like, we all had stuff going on, but it was kind of like, you're talking 90s as well. So this was like when you shut your door, you don't talk about your problems. It's not as free as it is now. So as a family, we didn't really speak about it after it happened. We just left it alone.
You raise a really good point there about how every family has their own demons, things going on in their families. Do you think that people are more open to talking about them and in public, in a public space, than they were when you were younger?
No, I still don't think they are, because you have to remember there's an element of shame attached to that. And there's an element of are we being looked at weirdly? Are we being are we that family? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah,
Are we
yeah.
that family? Are we the Jeremy Kyle family, or whatever you want to call it? So no, it's not an easy thing to talk about. But I just think there's a growth in especially in myself, but with my mum, being able to talk about it. And before I ever spoke about it, I spoke to my mum and said, like, I think this is something that could help people. And we had a chat about it. You're talking what, 5-6 years ago? It was only the first time I really spoke out about it. And like, I think it's more important to the story of me, because it's not necessarily the action that happened, it's what happened afterwards. So like being in school with social workers, now I'm that kid that everyone looks at like, why is that big grown man sat next to Troy?
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? I kind of, the only way I can describe it for young people is like, remember you had the diabetic in school that could eat in class?
Yeah.
And we was all like, and in my case it was a girl called Kirsty, I'll never forget it, blonde girl called Kirsty. Why does Kirsty get to eat quavers in school? Why does she get to have Kit Kats? But we have to wait till lunch. Do you get what I mean? And it was, so I felt worse than Kirsty in that regard, because I had this, in the little primary school chairs. Because I remember I'm at primary school when this happened to me. So we were on the little small tables, and I've got this big grown man trying to sit on a little chair next to me and try and help me, and it just made me feel really really weird and really awful, really, like, because I don't like sympathy, but I felt like everyone was like, it was more the teachers than the kids, because as you know, kids are unforgiving, they don't really care. But teachers were all like, more, are you okay, Troy? And do you need help? Or how's things at home? And it's like, I just didn't want to talk about it. It's fine, and just carry on.
You said that you first started talking about mental health maybe 6 years ago or so. And you've just mentioned how you didn't want to be that kid that people were looking at. You didn't want to, out yourself, let's say, in that way. How did you get to a point where you could go to therapy? Because this is one of the biggest questions that we come across when I'm doing the work with Dadvengers and stuff. It's getting men to that point where they can go and sit down in front of someone and talk about it. Because leading up to that point, there's a lot of, no, I'm all right, I'm going to be okay, deflect, and all of those things that go on. How did you get to that point?
Well, how I'm going to say it, I really hope nobody has to do it the way I did it. So what happened a little bit later is my dad died. So when I was 22, my dad died when I was 22. So in that 15-month period before that, I lost my great nan, my granddad, and my dad. So 3 of the 5 people that raised me died in 15 months.
Sorry, dude.
Oh, it's all right. It's actually going to be 10 years in 3 days' time since my dad died. So it was one of those things. It hit me, but what I didn't, because I didn't have anyone to talk to. I didn't have that social construct to be able to speak to. In our community we call them elders, like your uncles or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you just listen to what I said, my construct had just passed. So my dad had gone, my granddad had gone, and I'm going, everybody else around me, I'm playing football at this point, and I've elevated to a social level in terms of like who I'm around and the money and all of those things, where now people don't even think you're human. You've now socially gone above everybody else in your family because you can provide. So so I didn't have anyone to speak to, and then I was drinking a lot. And when you're in that, you don't really feel like you're drinking a lot because it's just you're normal. But I was drinking like, people might see, but they had like cans of Jack Daniels and Coke. I think they still sell them in shops now. I was drinking like 4 of those on the way to work in the morning, and then just drinking all day and just non-stop, right? And obviously I got into trouble. Obviously went to jail for it. I don't like talking about that story because there's a victim on the end of it. And they have a family and stuff, so I don't really like talking about what really happened in that situation. But I pled guilty and got sent to jail for it. I did my time, and I feel like since I've come out, I've been a lot better. Well, a million times better. But in being in jail, so I buried my dad on the Friday. I went to jail on the Monday.
Whoa.
So I never had any time to grieve or any time to understand what was really going on with me. So I then went, while in jail, I went into survival mode because I am vulnerable now. I'm in a proper jail.
Yeah.
I'm in with people that don't care, and my
And
dad's just
probably a bit of
died.
a target as well.
Yeah, exactly. All of those above, and I just went back into survival mode. So, in the process of coming out of jail, I had to do alcohol awareness courses, drug courses, and they sent me had to do one therapy session. And I did a therapy session, and I'll be honest, I hated it. It was because it was very generic, like, how are you and how do you feel today? And when you look at the sun, what does that represent for you? And it was like, well, I just did it just to do it. And then when I came home, I was on tag. I was on tag for three months. So I had a seven. So my day was 7 till 7. And when you've been inside, it's like you're very routine because got to get up at this time, do that and do that. But as soon as I came out, I'd been writing all the time. I love writing. I still write to this day. So I write like plans. I write like what I want to do. Especially when I was in jail, it was like write who I owed money to, how I was never going to owe money to anyone again, and all these plans. It was like a 5-year plan, and then I worked backwards. The biggest one that I wrote in there, because I had a friend who I still got a friend to this day who was inside, and he just said, "You all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm cool." He's like, walked into my cell, kind of like pulled the door to. I went, you look in a bad way." He went, "I haven't known you that long, but you're tired, man. I can see you just carrying whatever you're carrying. I don't know what, because obviously I wasn't speaking at that point. I don't know what you're carrying, but promise me that when you come out of here, you'll speak to someone." And I said, "Yeah, no problem." And he was my friend. He still is my friend to this day. And it was like, just speak to someone. And then when I went back to Watford, they'd just hired. It was like if it was meant to be. They just hired a in-house sports psychologist.
Yeah.
So I just knocked his door. Second day about being at work, and he won't mind me saying his name's Professor Tim O'Brien. One of the biggest reasons and factors as to where I am today, just mentally, in the space of being able to create something. Because he doesn't look like me. He's about 5'4", I'd say mid-50s, white man, grey hair, Irish, complete opposite to me. Do you know what I mean? But he created a platform and a construct for me to talk. And every time I left his office, not going to do that weight off my shoulders. I was knackered mentally. I was physically tired.
Yeah.
But I used to come home and sleep remarkably well every time. And then after a few times, I said, "Can I just ask you a question? Like, when I leave here, I've got a headache when I leave, but I go home and I sleep really well." He went, "It's because we're getting somewhere. It's because now your brain's going, have it, please. Get it all out." And I was working with him for like 4 years, and then we broke through a lot of stuff. And then it was like his remit had gone, so he put me on to 2 other types of therapists, and I'm still seeing them to this day. So like in our community, a lot of people will need to see what I would class as a trauma therapy, and a trauma therapist to be able to break down the layers. And when you do that, that shows you and makes you a better parent, in my opinion, from my experiences, because you start learning that your learned behaviours from 6, 9 and 12 are what you'll always revert back to mentally. So if someone gets you angry, Nigel, you'll go back to one of those 3 stages.
That I've experienced as a child growing up. It's so amazing that you talk about that, because I've heard about it before and I haven't actually ever been through therapy, but I'm curious that I want to see what's there. And there's something that you said that I really want to highlight for people that might be listening, who might be thinking about therapy. You said the first time you did it, you didn't really connect with that person that did it. But then when you met the guy, Tim, back at Watford, then it clicked for you. And it's really important for people to know you might not meet the right person the first time. You might not meet the right person the second time. You might not meet the right person the third time. But there will be someone out there who does resonate with you and does connect with you and will be able to help you. It's not about giving up on the first try, is it?
Of course not. And that's everything in life. If you got everything right the first time in life, then you'd be Elon Musk. You'd be the biggest billionaire in this world, wouldn't you? Because you'd never fail. But even within that, I just think that the beauty is in the failing, because now you've learned something. Now you learn what you don't want to do, or don't want to go down that route. So the next time you approach it, you just go, right. For example, when I met Tim, I said to him, look, I just want to have a conversation. I don't want to have these generic 6-7 questions. I want to be able to talk to him like I'm talking to you. Like he asked me how my day is going to go. Yeah, it's like this, like that. Oh, you said this. What is that like? Like, why did you use that word instead of using this word? And before I knew it, he was able to dig into my backstory before, within the first session, by me using a certain type of word.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. And then the fact that you have already noticed, well, I know it's been some years, but I'm sure you noticed quite quickly that it was affecting your parenting and the way you parent, and has made you a better parent in your eyes. And I'm sure it has. I agree with you. That's the special thing. That's the important thing, because then your children are in a better place, right?
100%. Because remember, there's so many forms of like connecting with your child. So I grew up on, and maybe you're the same. I grew up on like you can't cry, can't show weakness.
Yeah.
That the saying of like, when you're crying, if you carry on crying, I'll give you something to cry about.
I've heard that one. I've heard
Do you know
that
what
one
I mean?
a few
Yeah.
times.
So all of those things, and like I think as parents, what we do, we expect. Best way to put it is this way. So we look at our parents like they knew everything, but when you actually break it down, so my mum was 17 when she had me. So when she's going through all of these struggles and life and trying to get it together, she's maybe mid-20s, coming up to 30s. Do you get what I mean? And yeah. I'm going, you should know everything. Well, now when I flip it on my own self, my son's going to be 13 on Monday. I'm 33. Do I know it all? No, but he's looking at me like I know it all.
Yeah.
Same way that we looked at our parents. So we always look at our parents like, you should know it all. But all our parents are trying to do is guide us through a maze, through their probably limited experience of life at that time, limited knowledge at that time. And also the biggest construct in how my parents did it, looking back, was fear of not being able to provide. So, and as parents, and I think mainly as males, we always put this like defense mechanism up, like, I've got to work. So because I'm working, it doesn't mean I have to put the time in, because I'm providing. And that's our fallback. Yeah, the bills are paid, that you got a house over your head. So it doesn't really matter if I'm home.
Yeah, so many men still have that way of thinking, and it's a leftover thing from our parents and our parents' parents, where they think that their quota of being a dad is to provide the cash or the roof over the head, and that's it, job done. And they step away from that and they're like, yeah, I've done my bit. When that is, yes, we all need to do that, but that is not the essence of it. That's not where the real gems are, the real gold is, the real payback.
100%. And we do this thing where, but that's selfish within itself when you break it down. That's a justification for us to make us feel better about the things we're not doing as parents. So we go, oh yeah, I'm providing, they've got a roof over their head, they're safe. Okay, but are they emotionally connecting? Do they understand what's going on in their bodies, in their brains? Are we actually controlling what they watch? Are we actually telling them the right things to watch and read? Are they eating enough? Are they brushing their teeth 2 or 3 times a day because we're not there? All these little nuances all come from learnt behaviours before. So like I started at the top of this part is saying, like, when it comes to being emotional, that wasn't allowed in my household. So look, I can show you. I can't touch my shoulder. See, I broke my elbow as a kid, like that. I can't touch my shoulder. It's got like, it's all metal and all of that. It was a mess.
Whoa!
I wasn't allowed to cry.
You weren't allowed to cry in that moment when you broke your elbow. You smashed your elbow. You are in excruciating pain. I'm talking about.
Yeah.
No crying.
And I come home and I was crying, and my mum was like, "What's happened?" And I was like, I couldn't put my arm was like that. It wouldn't come straight. It was like that. And imagine the blood was down here, and it was like. And again, this is not like a dig at my mum, because we laugh about it now, but it was like, stop crying. If I've got to take you to the hospital, you better be something wrong with you. Do you know what I mean? We get to the hospital, I walk in, I show them my arm, and the lady's like, they went, forget waiting, because there was a big queue as there always is. They just put me straight into a bed, put me on a sling. I was in, and within 20 minutes I was in the X-ray room, and then when they come back, it turned out that I'd broken my elbow. I don't know what this bone is across here, but I basically just smashed all my elbow to pieces. I was in hospital for 6 days like this to get all the fluid out, and then they could operate, and then they put me in a cast and I was allowed to go. So I was in hospital for about 9 days in total. And my dad came, and the first thing he said was you crying? He didn't even say like,
do you even remember how that made you feel? And it's a long time ago, but maybe with you going back and doing the bits from the book, you've thought about these things. Do you know how that affected you? Did it affect you?
No, it's like, that was it. It was just, I grew up in a tough place, so all you knew was to be tough. And I was like, yeah, Dad, I cried, but Dad, it really hurt. And he's like, well, at least you got a cast. So, and then he went, so what happened? Because at this point, he didn't even know what had happened. He was just like, that was it. Like, how did we look first? Like, how did we look soft? And then like, once I explained it, he was like, okay, my bad. And then he would have bought me a McDonald's. And like I say, we didn't have much. So a McDonald's to us was like a birthday treat. You know, like on your birthday, you got a McDonald's and some presents. So he just bought me a McDonald's, and it was like, look, you did well. Like, you're doing all right. You've got to make sure you do the... Because at that time I was doing therapy as well afterwards, like when I finished. It's like, you just got to get your arm back. And thankfully I'm nearly, like as you can see, I can nearly touch it. If you imagine when I was a kid, I was like there. I couldn't touch my shoulder. Still struggle now, but like if I push it down, I can get to it. So, yeah.
You talk about your dad there and your experiences. Did you always want to be a dad?
Yeah, but I would say I didn't know how to be a dad. I still don't know how to be a dad. Still trying to work out that concept of what does a dad look like? And I think like so you know, when you're driving down the street, I don't know whether you did this. You're driving down the street. Let's say it's a Sunday, and you see that family, and they're out, all of them on their bikes together. Yeah, dad, mom, like kids. 4 families. Yeah, 2 kids. Like they're all riding, and I look and I go, is that a family? Is that what a family does? Is that what a dad does? Takes his kids out on a Sunday. But then when you layer it back one more, you're like, well, does he do that on a Sunday because he's never there Monday to Saturday?
Oh, right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Is he overcompensating now? Or is it the complete opposite? That is just something, he doesn't even want to be there. It's just something that the kids enjoy, so now he's doing it, but he's not actually involved in it.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? And it's about that what you brought up there is about that work-life balance, because most of the time, whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter whether you're a mum or a dad, you have to balance whatever you need to do to make life work, to make your money, to get the food on the table, whatever, along with being there for your kids, both emotionally and physically, and just to play as well. And that balance is a difficult thing to do. But that said, I think a lot of people saw some things over the pandemic that has made them think. Whether they've stuck to it or not, I have no idea. But I think a lot of people saw some things during that pandemic. They were like, oh, this is the way life should be. And I want it to be that way. But then we came out of the pandemic, and I don't know whether that's all gone to pot.
But that's when life takes back over. And I think it's important as well, like you just said, this is like about dads, but there's in my case as well, like my mum was mum and dad for a lot of time. So I think the beauty now for me is like my mum's mid-50s now, and she's able to be more grandparent now because all that we did as kids. So like I was working at the age of 11. I was doing like, you probably wouldn't be able to do it now, but I was doing glass collecting and cleaning the bookies with my mum and all of these different things just to get like extra bit of dough. And all the dough I gave to my mum, because I was, to put it this way, I've always been able to make money. So I was at school. If you send me to school with 50p, I'm coming home with £2. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm playing money up the wall, I'm eating, I'm doing whatever, and I've got £2 profit at the end. There you go, mum. Just do that. But like now, the beauty for me is seeing my mum be able to be grandparent. Like she's now, because she's got more time, and like I'm 33, soon to be 34. My brother's 30, my sister's 25, and my two youngest brothers are 14. Yeah. So 15, sorry. And she's in a space now where she's got her weekends back. And we spoke about this the other day, and it's like, she's like, I can call her now and go, I need you to pick the kids up. And she's like, no probs. When, where, how? Yeah. Because she's like, I just want to do it. I wasn't able to do that with you kids because when I was like, I'm from the age of 9, really, I've picked my brother and sister up from school.
Wow.
Do you get what I mean? So like especially when I got to secondary school, I was 11. I got in so much trouble at secondary school because I had to leave the last registration. I used to miss that to pick my brother up from school, to then walk round to the back to the nursery to pick my sister up from school and walk home. And then because my mum was at work and my brother played for Aston Villa at the time as a kid, I'd make them do the homework. I'd cook them some beans on toast, get them ready, get myself ready. Right, mum's here, let's go. And it'd literally be like, mum pulled in at 5, we all run out, throw him in the car, turn him round because he had to be at football for 6. And that was a 3 times a week thing.
Dude, what's making me smile about you telling that story is, for me, that is like daddy training right there. Right there, That is like the training to become a better dad that some people never go through and don't even realise. There's so many dads that aren't able to do the school pickup or get them home and then start them on their homework and all of that. And all of those things that you described are like some sort of little daddy training camp that I'm thinking would have like put you in good stead.
But do you know what it does as well, though? Sorry to cut you. Do you know what it does as well, though? Like you start having a more profound respect for women who are doing that as well. So now in the relationship that I'm in, because we're both working, it's like whoever's home first cooks. Because I'm able to cook because of the experiences we just spoke about, or do you know, like it's not just on my missus to do the washing or to put the dishwasher on like that. I can do all of that because I was doing it. If my brother's kit wasn't ready, I'd wash it, throw it in the tumble dryer, etc. Like, I know how to look. I'm probably more domesticated than most men in that regard. So it just gives you a newfound respect for women or men that stay at home and look after the household.
We are so happy to have Tonka as our sponsor this series. Basic Fun's Tonka collection is packed full of fun vehicles for kids who want to get out and get tough with their toys. So dads, you've got no excuse. Grab that mighty steel classic truck. It's time to head to the sandpit for some tough play. Having had that little experience in it, when you had your first child, how did you adapt to it? Did you adapt well? I mean, because later on you've talked about how therapies helped you become a better father. But when you were first immersed in it, how was it for you? Because there's a lot of dads who don't take to it that easily. And I think some of that is because they haven't had these experiences like with brothers and sisters where they've had to pick them up from school or just look after them and all those things.
I think in the practicality of it, I was really good. No, I had my first son when I was 21. So I was still a baby technically as well. So, and I just did I just move? Yeah, I just moved to Watford. Did I just move to Watford? No, I'm telling a lie. That doesn't even make sense, Troy. I was 19. I was 19, about to be 20 when I had my first son. So yeah, I was at Warsaw. So I'd just gone, to put it into like football context, I'd just gone from like £800 a week to £5,000 a week. So, and at 19, coming from nothing. So in the practicality of it, yes, my son had every pair of trainers you could ever think. They're them little ones that he doesn't even wear. He had all of them. Yeah, he had all of them. I could change his bum. I could get up in the middle of the night. I could do all of that. Yeah. In the emotional, was I at home, stay at home? Dad, no, not really. I was in that, the earlier stage we just spoke about, like I'm providing. So I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And as long as I'm home and I see him for a couple of hours, that was enough. And then literally fast forward 15, 16 months, I'm in jail. So I don't see him now for a few months, and then I'm because I'm on tag and I'm trying to get my life back in order. Probably for the next 4 years, I'm again providing, but I'm not really there because it's like I've got to make up for lost time and work. Do you get what I mean? So it's only now for the oldest one. It's only really now these last two, probably lockdown to be fair, has made me reconnect and understand him a bit more. And because I've got 4 in total now, so 2 boys, 2 girls, and your time spread between all of them, and then lockdown made you just go bang, here's all of them now. So who needs this and who needs that? And yeah, I'm able to understand them all a lot better. And I think they understand me a bit more because I've got a gym and stuff in the house that I still had to work out during lockdown. I think they started to see just how hard I work. Not dad's gone out from 9 till 2, let's say. And when I get back, I'm tired. It's like, no, you see what it is. And especially for the eldest boy, because there's a few times he came in the gym with me. Yeah, and he'd be dead by the time I finished my warm up, which is natural because of the age. But he'd be like, "Oh, I'm finished, Dad." Then he'd go and have a shower and he'd get whatever. Then he'd come back down and he's eating. He's like, "You still in here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm getting into the main bit now." Oh wow. Then he'd go play his computer, whatever. Then he'd come back. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got to swim now." And then when I finish swimming, then I got to do stretching. And then by the time it's lunch and I've come out, he's like, "You've just finished?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like. He didn't say like, wow. He's just like,
yeah.
You know, kids are, and he's just like, okay. So, yeah, it's just when I first had my first son, like I say, emotionally, no. Was I engaged? Yeah, I was proud as anything, but I think I've become a better dad over the last 3 years, and they would all probably tell you that.
Wow, and that's a direct result, you'd say, of talking to people.
Lockdown.
Of
lockdown. I would say, because I was always talking, but I think we all do. We need. It's going to sound really bad because people died and lost money and housing, but you know what the pandemic did. We all lived it, but I needed something to slow me down. I needed something to go stop, put the brakes on, and assess. And I think the first week of lockdown, everyone was a bit scared, well, this is strange. This is something new, but I don't think we could all have imagined being in lockdown for as long as we was. So there was that little bit of, this will be a week off. You know, let's just enjoy it. You know, let's just do things we wouldn't do. I think like everybody else, we bought Monopoly, we did quizzes, we did all of those different things.
Good times.
Yeah, and then when we start getting into this longer state of lockdown, I think everyone, not everyone, a large percentage of people would have sat back. And what I do pretty well, which is kind of blow smoke up my own backside, but I'm able to lift myself above my own situation and kind of like have a bird's eye view and look at, all right, so that's a bit of a mess there. How do we figure it out? And I can take the emotion out of it and just literally look at it as my life as how I want it to go and the business of life, i.e., I'm putting too much focus over there and getting little return for it in the sense of emotionally, I'm investing a lot into this, whether that be people, and I'm not really getting much back. Like if you're always the person sending a text message to that other person, well, maybe I don't really need to talk to that person because I'm not really getting much back.
Yeah, it's one way.
Yeah, so like I was able to lift myself up and put all my energies into what I really care about, and that's what's led us into not only being a better parent, better family, but like with what's going on in the curriculum. Because if I wasn't, I wouldn't have been able to see what my kids were actually doing. I would have already mentally known about it, but now I'm seeing it. All right, well, why aren't that changing? And do that. I wouldn't have been able to write the book because I wouldn't have been engaged with what's going on socially, because at that time, domestic abuse had gone up by 68% during lockdown. Okay, now my story is even more important now. There's no financial gain in it for me, but my story now might help someone, and I've spoken to you before. I believe in the snowball effect. I believe in, like, if I can impact one, that one will impact three to five, and it just keeps going. So I was, like I said before to someone, like, oh, how many copies is the book out? I don't know. I don't really care. As long as it sold one and it went to the right person, that was all that mattered.
Yeah, that's really important to know that. And our ethos at Dadvengers is all about helping just one person, help a couple of people, and let them help someone else, and that snowball effect. And it's a way that I think people should think about things. You talked about being at home. Did you do some homeschooling during the lockdown?
Always, yeah. Because my kids don't like it. I'm big on maths. I love maths.
I've heard this. I've heard you're a bit of a mathematician. That was the subject at school that you were comfortable with.
Yeah, I was top set for that all the way through. Wow. What I couldn't do at the time was break down the workings out, but I could tell you the answer. So you could say to me, what's 5 times 57? I could go bang, and it just comes out. But at school, I used to get punished because you didn't do the workings out. So they would just say you cheated. And I was like, I haven't cheated. I know the answers. But then it's like, show me your workings out. And I can't take the top off my head and go, there, that part of the brain just gave it me. So over time, and because I left school, I got kicked out of school at 15. And because I left with no grades, when my eldest started to go to private school, I started fixating on he had to do good. He had to do well. Like, he had to have grades and whatever. And then I think it was my mum said, like, you're on him a lot. Like, he's only 6. Like, give him a break. And I was like, no, like, because he has to understand, like, A, it's expensive, but B's in a much better position to do better than me. And blah, blah. She went, but you haven't got any grades, so how can you tell him he needs grades? And I went, oh yeah, what a hypocrite I am. So I went back to school when I was 24, and I got maths, English and science. I got all my GCSEs done.
I admire that massively, dude, because you had no need to do that, did you? You had your job, it's not going to affect anything along those lines, but you did that for yourself.
Yeah, and for my kids to prove that I'm not a hypocrite. So I did that. And then I took it a step further when how old would I have been now? I would have been like 27, 28. So that's a lie. I would have been 29, 30. So I went and got a degree in maths and business. And then at the age of 31 and 32, I just completed a degree from the Barcelona Sports Institute, which is money management in business and football. I got a degree in that as well.
Dude, I had no idea, but the background that you come from, and for someone who wasn't, let's say, typically enthusiastic at school, right? To go on to do that later in life, that just shows you that, and this brings us nicely round to what you're doing now, that it's about the way you learn, who's teaching you, and how you engage with that is the real key to education, right?
100%. And I think just one more bit to add on to that for me, you have to be able to see a pathway to where those grades lead you to. So, for example, if you got an A in maths, that doesn't necessarily guarantee you're going to get a job at the end of it. Do you get what I mean? So I feel like with the learning, what we need to do, and you know, just for people that don't know what I'm doing, I've obviously pushing that Black history and diverse learning needs to be pushed right across the board. And I feel like that enables everybody to have a conversation with different cultures and different people, and start from a younger age understanding that the way the world works isn't necessarily about grades. It's about who you know, how you know, and your intelligence level away from books. So, for example, and the easiest way to describe it is when we do maths, right? And I keep taking it back to maths, as you can see. But when we talk about...
Yeah, the answer to that question, I think, was 285?
Yeah, not bad for you, to be fair. Not bad for you, to be fair. But like where we talk about maths, we're going to do algebra. Instead of like just going into the lesson, we could literally start from every age group by saying, look, mathematics was actually created by the Egyptians. The Egyptians then got it to a certain level, and the Greeks took over. And now in the West, we use this as how the Greeks do, and we've taken it onto that. So in the 10 seconds it just took me to tell you that, it has now enabled you to go, wow, I didn't know that about the Egyptians. Wow, I didn't know that about the Greeks. So after a lesson, a child or 3 or 4 children might come up to the teacher and go, Miss, sir, you said that was about the Egyptians. When did that happen? Oh, we don't have time for that right now, but if you go to the library, this book is here. Now that child is engaged and can go get that book if he or she wants to.
And they feel empowered.
You don't know where that will lead on to, because they might read something about the Egyptians and go, well, I didn't know that about it. So if I don't know that about the Egyptians, what do I not know about the Irish travelling community?
Yeah.
What do I not know about the Highlanders? Do you know, like things of this nature that makes you then go, kids are the most imaginative, special human beings on this earth, in my opinion. You could tell a kid they can fly and they'll believe you. Why? Because they don't have any fear that we have put on them as parents. Because we put our fears and try to direct and guide our kids into this safe space of, you've heard it, as I'm sure growing up, get a trade. Get yourself a trade. You'll be all right if you've got a trade. Do you get what I mean? And we all do that. And our parents aren't trying to dampen us. They're trying to push us in a way of thinking that is safe and that, you know, you can earn a living for your family and you'll be all right. And that's good.
I know that so well. My son's a gymnast, so he trains 5 times a week, like gymnast. Yes, he works really hard at school as well, and he's talented there as well. But my dad's question to me on a regular is like, what do you want him to be when he's older? Is he going to be a doctor? Is he going to be a lawyer? Is he going to go down the road? Because he can't see that these days, if you're passionate about what you do and you love what you do, there's probably a way to make money doing it. You can be happy doing that job. But from that generation, they're like, no, get that trade.
But also, you just touched on something that he can't see. Your dad can't see how that becomes. Your son now, or my daughters, can now see that. Why? Because they have an iPad, they have YouTube. So they can now see young, successful people achieving. So it shouldn't be, again, in the household that they do that, because as we know, YouTube is a rabbit hole. And from one video, they go to 16 videos and you don't know where that goes. But imagine if you could just harness that in a school environment where they're reading books on these younger people, where they're understanding like, oh, this inventor who invented the traffic light was a black person. Wow, because only the inventors we hear about are your Elon Musks. Wow, he's a middle-aged white man from South Africa whose dad gave him a 30 million get-up. That's not what we could get. We can't get that. So you just got to be able to do that. And I'm working on an idea at the moment that if I pull it off, will actually enable young children from a very young age, like first start reading age, to see and hear and feel what they can achieve. I basically am trying to come up with an idea, and I'll say it on here, where you replace Biff and Chip books. So every kid reads Biff and Chip, right?
Yeah.
But let's just say we did the book on you, Nigel. We go. The first book has 40 words in it from start to finish, and then each kids read through the stages. That the colour stage is the key stage. That book never changes. It's still you, but all it does every time you go up a level is goes from 40 words to 50, 50 to 60. But it gives you more detail about you all the way through. So by the time that kids finish those key stage books, they're reading 120 words around you, but it's just more detail about what you actually did. And instead of it just being one Biff and Chip book, it's 50.
Like a range. Wow.
And it's 50, and that's men, women, black, white, Asian, all different ethnicities, but of sportsmen, inventors, science, women in the sciences, whatever it might be. And that same book just develops. So by the time that child is like 7, 8, 9, they've already got a deeper understanding of who these people are and what they can achieve.
Yeah. You're so passionate about education and this documentary that you've been working on. How long have you been working on it now?
8 months in total.
8 months in total. I got to see it, and a lot of people got to see it on Monday when it was aired for the first time. Along the way, what have you been surprised to discover? Because there's a moment in the documentary that totally surprised me, and it's the moment with the one book on one side and all the books on the other side. For me, that was mind-blowing to see what the UK government recommended as this is your book on Black history and diversity, and what is actually out there. That blew me away. Are there other things that have just been gobsmacking that made you just go, oh, this is right, this has driven me more to do what I'm doing?
Yeah, the biggest one is obviously the individual that we met on there that you saw, Calvin. People like that. That was difficult because he's saying that there isn't a problem, and then he's also saying that if you challenge the problem, you don't like white people, which, as you hear in the doc, was
that moment I was aghast. I was literally aghast to know that a mixed race man didn't get it. Totally didn't get it. But for me, that was partly because he's been indoctrinated into the system so heavily that he can't see it.
But I think even one better than that, he doesn't want to see it. Right. Because if you're engaged, and this will come in different forms of white, Asian, black, men or women. If you're making a pathway that's successful for yourself in those spaces, why are you now going to want to change something that could potentially change your trajectory and how you're going?
Change your privilege even. Exactly.
And for me, I break the mold, and people don't like it because I'm not doing this, as I said in the panel afterwards, I'm not doing this for Troy to get a pat on the back and how good is Troy. I'm doing this for this little bit of celebrity that I have to open the doors and bring through a load of young people, mainly women, if I'm being honest, are the people I'm working with at this moment in time. And again, that's not a conscious thing, it's just who I've ended up realising and seeing. But young, smart women under the age of 25 who are going to be here for a lot longer than me. But here you go, here is a voice and a space for you to talk to, because without being attached to some form of celebrity, they would never get heard. These young women have been doing this for 6, 7, 8 years.
And no one's listening.
No one's hearing it. And if they are, it's in their community, in their bubble. And hopefully with this documentary going out and everyone's names being put out there and the curriculums and the black curriculums, the impact of emissions, hopefully now they're getting more light shed on them and more people going there to actually understand the works, because I don't know all the answers. I never claim to. Don't want to be the smartest in the room. I actually enjoy learning. But what I will do, and what I will always scare people, is because I don't need anything from a government. I don't need anything from somebody else. So they can't dangle a little, if you do this for us, we'll give this for you. I'm fortunate. I'm in a situation where financially I'm good. I'm very good. So what do I need? Are they going to cancel me? Well, where we met is the perfect example. We met at Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
And why can't people cancel him? Because he doesn't need it. What he wants to do, he's still able to do.
Yeah.
Unless they literally tell me they're going to take my children away from me if I don't stop talking. That's all I need is my family.
Yeah. And that's a powerful position to be in, dude. And I admire what you're doing.
I'm just going to say on here, put 4OD, it's on demand for people that missed it and feel like they can't watch it. It's on 4OD on demand. Please go and watch it. I think it's a balanced view, but a powerful film. Obviously, I'm going to say that because it's Troy.
But, it is. And do you know what I'm really looking forward to? It's not finished yet. That's the first part. There will be, I'm sure there'll be an update later on and seeing where it goes. And that's what excites me. And yeah, I advise anyone to watch it. I've watched it twice already. So yeah.
Thank
Definitely.
you, man. I appreciate that. And I just think for parents now, and we can use this as like an end message if you want, but I just feel like for all parents now, we're in a privileged position. I lost my dad 10 years ago, right? So I would give anything to have one more conversation with him. I'd give anything to have one more dinner with him. I'd give anything to kick a ball with him one more time. So I seen a video on YouTube the other day and it really hit home. If you knew your parents were going to pass away, let's say you see your parents twice a year, birthday and Christmas, and you know they're going to pass away because they're elderly and they're going to pass away in 5 years' time. You're only going to see your parents 10 more times. Just think how powerful that is.
Yeah.
So now as parents, let's live every moment for our children because you don't know how long they've got, you don't know how long you've got.
Yeah.
And in a world where the negativity is so high, you turn the news on, it's negative. You look around, everyone's miserable. Take yourself out of that, close your front door, turn all the noise off, all the phones off, and just look at what you've got. Not the material, not the microwave don't work or the kettle's on its way out or whatever it might be. Just look at what you have. And once you've got that, that is true love, true happiness, true success. You're able to have children. You're able to develop someone's young mind into be something, whatever they want to be. It's a beautiful thing. And as parents, as people, I don't think we look back at that too often. I think we're so in the rat race of next, that we don't go, wait, let's just have a look at what we've actually got.
Dude, that's powerful. That's beautiful. Definitely. Listen, before I let you go, there's a couple of things I need to do. We often put out to the public to send in a couple of questions for our guests. So we've had a couple come in here. This one's from Quizzy the Quiz, and it says, being a father is an incredibly rewarding thing. What obstacles have you faced beyond the normal ones we all face that you've maybe experienced because of your profession and the fame that accompanies it?
I'm not able to watch my kids' sports days or football or anything like that without
just
what's
watching.
going on here. But yeah, I can't just go and be a parent. I can't walk around Asda with the kids again, I'm going to sound like I'm complaining. I'm not complaining. I've got a wonderful life, but it's more of the day-to-day things I can't do. I can't just pick my kids up from school and be dad and go to the park because there'll be 20, 30 people going, A, can we have pictures? B, what's going on in football? What's going on in this? And what do you think about that? And I can't just be immersed in that. The biggest problem I have is not actually anything to do with my profession. It's I got divorced 4 years ago, and I've got a new partner. So the problem I've had is that two of my kids don't live with me.
Yeah,
that's been the hardest challenge because alongside work, there, let's just say for argument's sake, I have them every other weekend. I may have 2 away matches, which means I'm away Friday and Saturday. So I'll only maybe get to see them Sunday. But the way we've worked is I don't actually see them those weekends when I'm awake. It's not fair on them. Yeah. So I might go sometimes 3-4 weeks without seeing my kids. That's probably the hardest thing.
Yeah, that is tough. That's really, really tough. Thanks for being open about that. Got another one from Gordy Pope who says, have family commitments ever come into play when choosing the club that you're going to play for?
100%. Where I am now.
Yeah.
So we had opportunities to go. One was Saudi Arabia, which was an awful lot of money, as you can imagine. One was to go to Scotland, which was a lot of money. And the lesser of all of the options I had was to come to Birmingham, which is my hometown club, but I'm 15 minutes door to door from my kids, and I'm 20 minutes away from work. So at this stage in my life, it was, let's get family together and let's make that more whole and enjoy those little moments instead of being away again and chasing a pound note.
Yeah, man. Good choice. The right choice. You did well. The last question to ask you before we finish is this. We ask this to all of our guests, and it is, if you could have a dad superpower, what would it be and why? You can take your time. Oh, he's got straight in.
It's cool. I got
he's straight in.
It would be to be able to understand my kids, like what they think and why they think it, and then to be able to help. I think.
Dude.
I think for me, we're always trying to, like, I get very angry as well. Not angry like I get like frustrated I can't figure out why they would do things. So we have like what I think are basic template rules in the house, like no phones at the dinner table, no iPads at dinner table. And we do this weird thing where we talk for 30 minutes, like when we're eating, we have conversations to see what's going on. To be able to listen to like the kids and understand what they're doing, but in a normal setting, like I got a 2-year-old who's fascinated with like cars at the moment, but will not put one down when we're eating. So like to be able to understand why you need that car.
That down?
Yeah. Or if I take it off you, why do you start crying? Like to understand things of that nature, that would be my superpower.
Awesome. Great choice. And the reason that I reacted the way I did is because it's the same thing I chose. When I got asked that question, I was like, yeah. I put it in a slightly different way. I was like, I'd love to be able to just put my hand on my child's head and know, oh, that's why you're feeling like that. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Right, no worries.
Yeah.
It's all good. So yeah, I totally get it. Listen, thank you so much for your time and for being here. You've been absolutely amazing, and we will be staying in touch. I will help you with anything that you're needing.
Vice
to do.
versa. I appreciate what you're doing, and that's why when you told me about it, I said we'll get it done. Apologies, it took a little bit longer than it should have done, but as you can see, I've been busy. But we will, anything we can do moving forward, we should champion it. And I do think there needs to be more work done in and around parenting and in and around dads in particular with emotional connections and understanding their children. So anything I can do for that, I will help.
Defo. Thank you so much.
Anytime. Thank you.
Wow. What an incredible man. What an incredible father. What an inspiration. If you haven't seen the documentary we were talking about, go and watch that. If you haven't listened to Troy talking on other documentaries, the reason I wanted him on this podcast was because he was on the Louis Theroux Grounded podcast. I think he's an incredible human being. He's going to do a lot for a lot of people, and I'm glad that we had him here on the Dadvengers podcast. So there you go, another episode done. But what did you think of it? We would love to know. Leave us a review or a comment on Apple Podcasts or on social media about this episode or the series as a whole. And don't forget, if you want to be first to hear brand new episodes, make sure you subscribe via your preferred podcast platform. To find out more about Dadvengers, make sure you head to our website, dadvengers.com, where there is information about our live chats, our dad walks, our blog posts, and more. We'll see you soon.